weren't
Well,
able to see clearly inside your
we
heart.
didn't say
Oh my
anything
goodness.
incriminating.
You've had
Well,
me
except
in
for my social
direct
security
notice,
number.
and I asked you not to do that.
Ironic, you referenced that
What?
this moment.
Why? Why, Mr. Darris? Don't you know you've always been alive?
Oh boy.
'Evil twigs. Evil twigs abound.'
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
It means I can mute the soundboard now.
He wouldn't do that.
2019.
2019.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a while ago.
It
Yeah.
shows kind of.
Ari Aster. Well let's
I'm,
start at the beginning. So, starts out, so Danny, Florence Pugh's character, is in a fairly unsupportive relationship with her boyfriend, Christian. He is just, he's got one foot in, one foot out, and he's kind of looking for a way out of the relationship. Um, uh, but then Danny gets word that her suicidal sister is acting up again, and she tries to stop something terrible from happening, but something terrible does, and her sister commits a murder suicide, wherein she and both of her parents die, and so Danny loses her family right at the very beginning of the movie, and that really kind of sets the tone for the movie for the whole time for me, because that is like Astor's movies aren't just scary, they're upsetting. Like if you look at Hereditary too, I think that we'll draw, if you guys have seen that movie, we'll draw a lot of comparisons to that one too. Um, but like upsetting things happen in both of his movies, and this one, the most upsetting thing for the whole movie happens at the very beginning, and it's a scene that I don't know. My feelings on it change depending on the day, even depending on the hour. Like today, my feelings about this scene are going back are oscillating. But the scene often kind of just makes me angry because it's just so sad. It's just so devastating that I almost think that it just has no business being in a horror film, because it's I I see horror as kind of a fundamentally unserious genre. Like it's supposed to be kind of over the top. It's supposed to be kind of sensationalized. It's supposed to soften the material by not treating it with a lot of gravity. But this scene seems to violate that. It seems to kind of go over a line wherein it's not scary anymore. It's just upsetting, and that's not what I came here for. I didn't I wasn't ready for this. I didn't come in here to like actually be sad and upset about something like this happening. So I'm like, I feel like he's almost indulging in human suffering rather than just kind of playing with playing with the idea of human suffering in the way that horror movies traditionally do. So that part of it makes me kind of angry. But then I think, wait a minute, but it's almost worse what horror movies do, where they kind of like make human suffering into just pure entertainment. So maybe what Astor doing is actually the more noble thing. He's actually making a horror movie that takes human suffering seriously. So I have more on this, but I will end it there for now and see what you guys have to say. Right.
Wait. Hold your thoughts there. Hold your thoughts there, Pumpkin, because you're not coming up on stream. You are not. Yeah, we
Yeah,
can hear you.
I can hear you.
Oh yeah, if yeah, just a viewer is confirming. Yeah, he can't hear you. He can't hear you, Pumpkin. He can hear Red and I, but he can't hear you, Pumpkin.
Thank you, just a viewer. You are more than just a viewer, I have to say. You are a colleague at this point. You're helping us with stuff. Thank you.
How about now? Can you hear me now on stream? That's a no.
I just heard myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's because of me, sir.
I just hitting all these things. So you're gonna get one of these.
Right, you're coming up on stream. Wait. Whatever you did, it fixed it.
All right, so it was a Streamlabs issue. All right, it's because of the microphone, man. There's always gonna be a slight buzzing. It sucks. It's not the microphone's good. It's just the problem is I don't prefer this method. I like actually the method I've been using for the past few weeks. But with everything that's been going on, I have to do a whole bunch of toying around to get it to work again right. So, yeah. Anyways, back to the other thing. What is your thoughts on this one, Red? Thank you, just a viewer. What's your thoughts on it, Bolt? You're wearing a red shirt today, and it confused me for a second there.
I didn't know we had color assignments.
Well, you're wearing a red shirt. Now look here. Oh, red. I'm all out of this place, all right? I had a really bad headache all day. Dealing with stupid people. Gave me a headache first thing in the morning.
I've been there, done that. I understand the feeling all too well. Still going through that feeling, but about the film itself. This film cemented my assumption on folk horror as being the true essence of horror, because this film was very well made in several aspects. So like to the visuals, to the sound, to like the actings from all the actors and actresses involved in this. It's like the themes of this was just like, oh, some random woman lost her family for no good reason. Let's go on a unplanned field trip to Sweden. And by we, I mean her, because she more or less unintentionally forces herself on this guy's trip when the guys involved want her out of their lives once and for all, because, bros will be like that when they just don't care for the guy's girlfriend. But anyway, I really love like how you can actually feel like what they're describing. Like when they tell you like, oh yeah, that like nature's breathing, you can actually see in the visuals in the movie like when nature is breathing. It's like it is very trippy. It's like this if I wanted to have a good idea of what an acid trip or being tripped out on shrooms is like, I go watch this film and then I'm gonna make sure to take a break, because yeah, it gets super trippy very, very quickly. It does pace itself really bit.
Yeah, the post-production stuff with the visuals is very interesting, how you have the environment pulsing around them.
Yeah, it's like from the trees to like the little flowers, and it's like, and it reminds me of like this one like background from this video game called Mother 3. And like and the reason why I thought of that game specifically.
Don't you fight a cult in that game?
Don't Mother 3.
Yeah, don't you fight a cult in that game?
A cult is in the game, but
oh no, wait, it's Mother 2. You fight Junction Rikyo. My bad.
Yes.
There we go. Continue.
Yeah, but the main takeaway connection from Mother 3 to this movie is like it gives them the symbolic gesture of showing dandelions as you're getting led into this this cult family. It's like, oh, they're screwed. Oh, they're screwed in so many ways. But I did not know going into that. It's like, oh yeah, like the lead was actually going to survive. I wrote everyone off for dead.
Right.
But yeah, it was therapeutic. Oddly enough, it gave me a weird sense of like, what the hell do I do now? Like, is this a tragedy?
How the hell is that therapeutic, man?
Like, that's what I'm trying to understand, because it's like this is all types of fucked up, objectively speaking. But
what is
like,
wrong with you?
Nothing therapeutic about that.
You were smiling. You were smiling at the end.
No, I know exactly what you're saying, because in the end, like I mean, almost everybody has died in horrible and grotesque ways, but Danny's turmoil is kind of resolved at the end. The last shot is just her kind of like a little smile cracking on the sides of her mouth. Like she finally has this sense of like, well, bad boyfriend's dead. I have a new family now, so like, it's all good. And you kind of wrestle with that as the viewer. On the one hand, like she's just kind of accepting the fact that all of these horrible things have happened to her friends. But the other part, and you like are like just sort of horrified that that's a feeling that she's having. But on the other hand, you're like, you know what? Good for her.
Yeah, good for you, lady.
Like she, because the whole movie, she has just been frowning. She's been down. She's been wrestling with the loss of her family, the betrayal of her boyfriend, just like her relationship slowly deteriorating. So like you've been rooting for her the whole time. So it's kind of hard to not be happy for her in the end.
But to be fair, the boyfriend's betrayal wasn't until the last 20 minutes of the film, and that was forced.
That's true. The ultimate betrayal was forced, but I think that part of
there was some free will there.
Part of what I
there was
mean
some free
about
will.
Betrayal was him staying in a relationship that he didn't have his heart in.
Yeah, he should have just dumped her. Like, if you don't want to be there anymore, brother, like, I understand, it's a bad thing, but at the same time, you're not really there anymore. It's better to just call it a day.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
quick question.
And she knew that it was toast. So, I mean, she could have ended it too, because it's pretty obvious that she knew what was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She just didn't want to. But what's your question, boy robot?
When would have been a good time? Obviously, everyone would say, before her finding out that the parents and the sister died. But like obviously that's foresight. So like, would it have been okay for him to leave her when she discovers that her family is basically dead?
Yes.
Would that
is a moral dilemma.
Yeah, but
on the one hand, you don't want to give her something else to be devastated about while she's going through this tragedy. But on the other hand, you don't want to string her along. You don't want to lie to her. So, I mean, it is a real moral dilemma, that one.
Would you guys
doing both?
Would you guys believe me if I told you I've been there before?
No.
I want to say no.
So
I want to say no, but I'm not surprised.
I didn't know that you've been there.
I'll tell the story very quickly. So I was in a relationship.
It was no.
Yeah, I'll tell the story quickly. I was in a relationship years ago, and as things were being finished up, everything was coming to a close, right? Like, how a good breakup takes like a little bit of time, right? You just have to like close things up, and you give each other space. Just as we're closing shop, her dad got himself into a situation which was fatal. And then they were like, I really don't want you to leave right now. I really need you to be with me with this. And in my head, I'm like, I could stay, but that ain't real no more. I don't want to be here. And then I'm going to be here prolonging it's like waking a zombie. I'm going to prolong something that, unfortunately, man, it's not good for me to be prolonging this. So, unfortunately, I gotta go. I can't do this. I can't be a part of this anymore. So, I got a bunch of calls. Please. I had to stick with that. And then I pretty much just went full no contact. People are like, oh, should you have really done that? I'm like, yeah, because I'm not doing her any favors. I do not want to be around. That is a tender moment. Those are moments you need to be with people that really want to be around. And in my case, the relationship, the way I was treated, I just wanted out. I hate to say it like in a weird way. Huh?
I think he did the right thing.
Yeah, like I'm sorry and I apologize, but unfortunately it was one of those things like you gotta go, and when you gotta go, it's better to just go because you're only doing more harm staying there than you are doing good. So in his case, I know it would have sucked, but it would have been better if he'd just turned around and said, "Hey, look, my friends and I are gonna go see this cult. I'm not. I still think it's better that you go and stay here and figure your stuff out. It's better that I'm leaving on this project because that gives you time to figure your life out. It's not doing you any good to keep clinging to me. Like, I'm here for a bit where I can stay here as your friend in the capacity as a friend, but I'm not going to go ahead and continue to be your lover because I don't really want to do that anymore." And unfortunately, it sounds mean, but it's better to be that way. You know?
Yeah, when you're in an ethical dilemma like that, I think that usually the harder thing to do is the right thing to do.
Yeah. And it sounds mean. Like, believe me, it sounds mean. But at the same time, like I can't remember who I discussed it with, but I said, would it have been better had I stayed put and I didn't want to be there anymore? I mean, for this guy, he clearly, based on his actions throughout the movie, like he's pretty much being dismissive. He's being mean. Like, dude,
It's just such it's such a believable portrayal of a toxic relationship that's just like crumbling before your eyes. It's just like it's just a very, very well written, well acted effect.
100%.
Yeah.
Because it felt like those two did not really want to be around one another anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, it really did. Like,
Well, she wanted to be around.
He didn't, though.
Oh yeah. Ultimately, he was just tired of being the emotional comfort for her, while she had to constantly deal with the back and forth with her unstable sister, and then with this being like, I guess, like the more or less the anchor / ultimate out, and handle it in the worst way possible. When he was just better off just making a clean break.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like it could feel selfish breaking up with someone because their life is just so hard. You know, like that feels like kind of a dickish thing to do. It's like, I can't deal with your baggage. I don't want to support you in that way. You're not worth it, so I'm going to break up with you. That feels like being a dick. But on the other hand, if you really can't, if it does make you not enjoy your relationship with the person, if it is a barrier to you being able to connect with that person, then you should leave. It's just again, like Jack said, like it seems like it's mean, but it's actually just the best thing for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, right, but it sounds mean and stuff, but I'm on that camp too. Like, guys, yeah, if you don't want to be there, you're only causing more harm. You ever do something you don't want to do? Like, we've all had to do it as kids, right? Like, you have to go maybe visit this family member you don't want to go visit. You go visit that family member, and you're miserable being there. And then they look at you like, why are you being this way? Why'd you come if you don't want to be here? Because you told me to. Otherwise, I'd have stayed my ass at home playing video games, not here. But since I'm here, I'm going to be in a good mood, right? I'm just not in the best mood. Like, leave me alone. Yeah, I'm pretty sure like that's a common experience for everybody, right? Like, you got to do some things you don't want to do sometimes. And then you find yourself in this type of thing. Like, in my book, dude, you don't want to be there. Let her go. And I understand you're going to be thought of an asshole. You know what? That's okay. Your friends don't like you anyway. Her friends don't like her anyway. Whoever the hell she... What do you care if you're an asshole to a bunch of strangers after this is over? What does it matter? But no, all he did was bring them their charge by just wanting to be awkward and not do what he should have done.
Well, you had the snake friend that liked her.
That's what I mean. The snake friend, like, he literally just hooked that guy up with the snake friend. That's all he did.
And apparently, when Astor wrote the movie, he was going through a breakup.
1 second.
So it seems like it being a breakup movie was kind of like what he was leading with. Like, it's just supposed to be a breakup movie. And,
I mean, he nailed it, and by the end, he nailed it. I mean, I will say another thing. He brought back to my mind, from the deepest crevice of my memories, what a blood eagle was.
Blood eagle or bald eagle?
Blood eagle.
what's a blood eagle?
You don't remember that scene with one of the random people that were also visiting the convent at the same time? They tried leaving. The boyfriend, he he did not leave. It was like made to believe like, oh, he left his girlfriend ahead of time by a trip, but it turns out no, he got taken back to the shed, and they turned him into a blood eagle as one of the 9 sacrifices.
Ah. Now I kind of remember what you're talking about. Yes, the first guy.
Yeah, he was still alive. That was the worst part about that.
That's what you mean by eagle with his arms.
Yeah, blood eagle. Yeah, they basically opened his rib and his back up.
Ooh.
And just spread out his skin.
I do remember that. I just didn't. I just didn't recognize the term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How the hell do you know what a blood eagle is? Where have you seen a blood eagle before?
That's a good question. I don't want to dig that far in my memories to find out why I learned that term the first time.
Who taught you that word?
Someone was looking at cartel videos on the internet, weren't they? With their artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. Don't act silly. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That's what people like you do if you know what those terms are. You're sick, Bo. You're sick. Alright?
I will not confirm nor deny that.
You're sick, Bo. Thank you, Just a Viewer. Made the right choice in that situation. You're sick, Bo. Gotta say it one more time.
So, presumably, all of these folks are brought there to be sacrificed in some way. Maybe except Danny. It's hard to tell exactly what their friend Pell, what his overall plan was.
I know what his overall plan was. She's hot, she's single, she's vulnerable. All right, let's hope she lasts that dance, baby.
I thought that was his plan all along.
Yeah, I assumed that was his plan. Like, oh, she's hot, she's vulnerable, I can allow her to come in here. I'm pretty sure this guy confessed to him that he doesn't like her anymore anyway.
So you think it was, maybe it wasn't just like something that his culture put him up to. It was just his scheme to get inside Danny's pants.
Yeah.
It's like 50-50.
Okay.
Mission successful. No, it was like, you roll the dice, see what happens.
Myself, I wouldn't put it past him.
Shit, I've seen guys do a lot of scummy things to get a chick before. I wouldn't be surprised. That's not like out of the wheelhouse. He has a cult at his disposal.
Yeah. But his behavior is one of the disturbing aspects of the movie, because he's that kind of, maybe you might call him a psychopath, or you might call him just someone who's brainwashed and who is just been inculcated with loyalty to his community, such that he's able to do terrible things. But he operates like a perfectly normal person in the real world. He's an empathetic person. Like, he sits Danny down and like really is able to kind of analyze their relationship and what's wrong with it. So, he is kind of that classic creepy psychopath in that he really does understand human emotion. It's just that his relationships don't really drive him to like have compassion on everybody, such that he doesn't want to kill them, or that he's not willing to participate in their violent deaths.
I always thought he was just like some kind of recruiter.
Yeah.
That's what I thought he was, because he's kind of like he's kind of selling that to them for the most part. But like in reality, the other dude, he ain't biting. He doesn't want a piece of that.
Just like with pyramid scheme recruiters, they don't tell you everything at the beginning.
They don't.
When they're trying to recruit you.
No, they
I
don't.
think we might have talked about this on the podcast.
Yeah, we did. Your Starbucks guy tried recruiting you into...
Whenever I've been approached by a pyramid scheme person, something that I note is just how vague they are on what their organization does. And whenever you ask them about it, they always give like these evasive answers. It should be a very, very basic thing to answer. What does your organization do? What do you sell? If you sell things. Anyway, but yeah, so he left the whole like you are going to be mutilated and brutalized in bizarre and creative ways.
Yeah, he left all that out. It was pretty funny though.
So, but there is one, and this will lead to a discussion about a particular scene in the movie, but the ritual suicide scene, where you have those two 72-year-old folks that jump off the cliff, because traditionally in this culture, you're supposed to commit suicide at that point in your life in order to, like, because I guess that's just sort of when the life cycle is supposed to end. Everything after that is just suffering and decay. Might as well go out while you're still intact, while you have all your marbles, and while you're still happy to be alive. Strange as that is, but like, I guess their thinking is it's better to do it then than wait till you are just not happy living anymore. But anyway, but before we go into that, I do want to ask you, why does Pell not warn them about that? He just takes them to the bottom of the cliff where everybody else is, and then he just like the ritualistic suicide happens, and Pell didn't tell them, and they are understandably like horrified at what they've just witnessed, and some of them even may make a scene about it. Those two British folks, like they're the ones that are the most angry about it. But everybody else that isn't part of the community is also very, very disturbed by this, and it just like and like I don't know why Pell didn't warn them about that. What do you guys think?
I think it's a sense of shock. I think it was like a purpose kind of like thing to shock the system, because then you're not thinking straight. When you have a lot of adrenaline and you freak out, you're not thinking straight. So basically, it's a way of manipulating. That's how I took it.
Make them more vulnerable.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, right? Oopsie doodle. When you do stuff like that, all you really cause is for them to freak out, and by making them freak out, they're not going to go anywhere. Or they're going to try to leave, and you're so distressed by it, you're not really paying attention. So, like, example I'll give is, I heard their story, right? Oh, yes, he went and took the car to the nearest train station to see if it was good. The car will be back later, upon which we will see if we can get you there, because there's only space enough for one room in the car. Something like that. I'm like, you're freaked out about that. That's why you're not asking questions. The question you should be asking right about now is, you're full of shit. Why would my boyfriend leave me here without going with him and we're separate like this? No. You're full of shit. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't believe that, but because they're so freaked out, I don't think they're thinking straight about it. They're just like, oh. He probably freaked out too and left.
Well, think about it this way. Even if they were thinking straight, what could they have honestly done in that situation? They were outnumbered.
Well, the idea is you freak people out, and it at least kind of ruins their plan and their vibe. But by not doing anything, they're just kind of like going with it. It gives them time to hide everything. It gives them time to, kind of like string you along. Whereas if you freak people out, or at least start making a bigger scene, everybody's going to see. Right? At least the other people are going to see, and they're going to try their best to do something about it.
Like the British people, they should have handled it how the other group did, because had they just like at least pretending to be talked down from the shock, they probably would have lasted longer.
If they hadn't disturbed the solemnity of the whole ritual.
They weren't gonna last at all. Those people were legit. They were gunning for them. They had them separated and everything at that point.
I mean, they were kind of peripheral characters, so that's that was a good indication that they were going to go first.
Yeah, like I saw it. I'm like, oh, there's like sometimes you'll watch a movie and you'll be like, there was a possibility for you to make it out of here. Not in this one. Those people were screwed from the minute they got into this situation.
Yeah, or it's like that scene in Family Guy, Blue Harvest, where they're all in the ship and they're all being shot at, and Peter says, "Look, we've got 5 of the main characters in here. I think we're going to be okay."
Pretty much, 5 of the main characters in here. I think we're going to be fine. God.
Yeah, Danny's group were more or less fine up until 2 of them started. No, the guys. Let's say they're outside. The guy until the guy started making stupid mistakes. Like you have the one guy who was more. I think he knew about that ritual. Like he refused to tell Danny and Christian, or just anyone, what was about to happen, because Pell looked at him and it's like, "Oh, okay, I know what's going to happen. I'm not going to say anything," because he was too fascinated by it. He was doing his freaking thesis on it.
I think that's what he was going there for, though.
Yeah, he was going there for it, but then Christian decided to, oh, that sounds like a great idea. Let me co-op it, and then we can like write it together, and we can like share the credit. And I'm just like, wow, you're that guy. You're literally that guy in the group project. And on top of that, he was trying to screw one of the locals.
Yeah.
It was, oh jeez, like I'm so glad Christian died. I'm so glad he died.
But yeah, no, we're all glad he died. It's one of those people that are like, you don't deserve it.
He died looking like a Sesame Street character.
So can we get into that guy's death? Because I was just confused by everything that I was witnessing there. I'm like, oh god, this is one of the first times in my life watching Homeland I've questioned my life decisions. So they tricked this moron. They honeypotted him, right? Like, you can have this plain vanilla looking girl who looks no better or no less than Jennifer Aniston, possibly slightly better than Jennifer Aniston. You can have sex with her unprotected and totally for fun. Just go over there in the room and do her on the barnyard floor. It'll be interesting. We'll give you some drugs. It should be fine. And the whole time I'm watching this, I'm like, okay, he's banging this lady. The people are not leaving. And then they start singing a loud note as she's moaning. They start moaning with her. Now I gotta give this guy some credit. He's doing a real good job keeping a hard on. I don't think I could keep going after the first women and old women start imitating her shouting. And then they start putting their hands on his ass to help him finish along the way. And suddenly, this is just weird. All of this is weird. I've seen a lot of horror movies. This is crazy. What the hell is happening? And then he's like drugged out.
You want to mention the age?
Oh yeah, let's go back to the age. Well, I'm pretty sure the line out there, I never thought missing children could be so sexy, would come across, right? 'Cause that girl has to be missing. I don't know what the hell. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's that guy. I'm pretty sure he goes around saying, "You have no idea how hard it is to polish the one-eyed weasel while holding the back of moon juice while doing an 18-wheeler. Never thought missing kids could be so sexy, so sleazy." Yeah, so homeboy that girl was a minor. I had to process an old 90s song in my head to just cope with this. That girl was a minor. She was well under 18, and that guy banged her when he was in college or whatever. He's a freak.
He's in grad school.
And she's 15.
He was 15. He's at least 23.
So is that what Leonardo DiCaprio does? Does he like go around finding them that young at that age? Doesn't he trade up every so often? Like they stay 19 or 25 or something like
But
that?
he doesn't. He doesn't use a cult to do it though. He doesn't use a cult.
I'm pretty sure he uses a cult. He's in Hollywood. Go ask our friends. He'll talk about their adrenochrome.
He's part of some secret society.
Yep.
I'm not sure which is worse: the fact of that scene in just its bare entirety, or the fact that while that's happening, he is presumably looking at the mother singing to him while this is happening, and I think that is how he was able to continue.
I'll tell you what's happening here. This is an example, folks, of how Leonardo DiCaprio attempts to breed so that he can have himself one of them forest brides every 10 to 15 years. He trades up. The Hollywood elites, folks, they do this. It's right there. It's in front of you. Everybody can see it. God damn it.
I think one of the funniest, one of the funniest moments in the movie is when the mother gets up in his face while he's doing it, and just like the look on his face was like, I didn't think this could get weirder, but it just did.
But he's still able to keep going. That's what my point is. It's like, you're not looking even at the lady anymore, dude. You have some old woman like sticking her face in your face, kind of like Dan weird levels of fucking weird. She's like right there, and he's kind of like,
Yeah.
And I saw Flesh Eater, and I thought this was a weirder sex sequence in my life. One of the weirdest things I've seen filmed. How many sex scenes did Flesh Eater have again? Like 3, 4? For a zombie movie, it had explicit nudity. Yeah, we're going back there. It's my comfort zone after escaping this weird moment I saw with that shit.
There's that one scene that we agreed was like actually pornographic.
Yep. And then comes this scene trying to be like was this tasteful porn? What the hell was this?
It wasn't tasteful. it was not.
I would call it a very bizarre.
That was a crime. That was a crime.
Pornographic.
That was a crime, and you know it. It was sanctioned by a group of naked, old to middle-aged women that knew how to harmonize.
Okay, well,
they knew how to harmonize.
We can't ask Antonin Scalia if this counts as pornography or not. Unfortunately.
Oh,
unfortunately.
Because he's the guy that wrote, you can't define it, but you know it when you see it.
Sorry, I'm just still weirded out because doesn't he run out naked and then they kill him while he's naked?
Oh no, they didn't kill him while he was naked. That would have been too easy. No, like after having his whole dick out for a good 5 seconds, then he decided to cover it, even though he was more or less alone in the cult field. He runs into the bar when he finds the blood eagle of one of the British people. And then he gets the stardust blown into his face treatment, and he's paralyzed. And he just sits there.
And then he gets stuffed into a bear.
Ah, yes. So this is the first part about where the bear's coming, right? Because we're going to see the movie the dude punches the chick in the bear outfit.
Yes, that's what I mean. That's what I meant by he died looking like a Sesame Street character.
Mm-hmm. That looked like Nicolas Cage.
So yeah, you've heard of the turducken. Now in this movie, you've got
bear jerkass.
You've got the bearman.
Bear pig. I'm super cereal. Oh boy. So, man. There's actually one question I had for you guys, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see what they were eating?
It didn't look terribly appetizing.
Did you notice the shape of it?
I don't remember exactly what it was. What was it?
One of those things looked like shepherd's pie, no?
Did you notice the shape of the main set piece? They go really out of their way to blur it when you try to look at it. I think it's people.
Did it look like an 8? Wait, what?
It looks like people to me. When you go look at the dinner table, There is the pie, right? And then there's the big sort of like meal dish thing, right? That's like sort of on the spreadsheet, on the spread. When you take a look at it, I think it's people.
Do you think they're cannibals?
I think they're eating the sacrifices.
Yeah.
Because you can't make it out. Like every time they sit at the table, they're kind of high, as it is, right? So then, like, you kind of wonder, is that dude really seen the bee come out of the meat pie and all that stuff? But at the same time, I'm also like, are you also high so you can't recognize what they're looking at? Like what they're eating, like from the fan base, like from the audience, like you can't see what they're eating. So because you can't see it, but then when you look a little close, it looks like a human rib cage a little bit. So it makes me wonder,
possible.
like, are they eating? Yeah. Are they eating the people? Is it some part of their religion? Like, is that part of it?
I mean, they stuffed two of the guys like scarecrows. Like,
that's what makes me. Well, I'll tell you who I think they're probably eating. I think they're eating their own, not the outsiders. That's what I think.
Because some people willingly sacrifice themselves in
this
culture.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that's who they're eating.
But, like, here's the thing, because it's like, the only reason I would not be so gung-ho about that is because they also believe in incest, but they have incest reserved for when they want to get an oracle.
Yes.
So it's like, that is important. So them eating their own will just significantly reduce the population faster. But at the same time, like, how they're getting that consistent supply of outsiders that they also at the same time use to help breed with their own population to keep themselves going.
Actually, I got lucky. There is, and somebody actually took a shot of what it is, and it's actually really creepy looking. Let me put it up for you guys to see. I'm gonna share my screen real quick.
Boy. For anyone who has weak stomachs.
No, it's not that weird, but it does look. It doesn't look like your average sort of turkey or whatever. When you look at it, it doesn't look like that. It looks kind of
creepy. Oh, what is that?
Right? Like you can't really tell what right? It's weird. You can't really tell what that is. So part of me is like, is that people? Right? Right? Like when you look.
Maybe
that's not
people,
humanoid.
Maybe it's just supposed to look kind of eerie and mysterious.
But that's only one. The other one they don't show, which I was looking for, was the oopsie doodle people who are watching us on screen. I apologize. I lost their feed here.
Hey, Center.
Hey, Center. Hopefully you're having a less eventful week and a more harmonious one. Alright. Where are we at?
I love how they just come in at the food portion.
Yes. Seriously. There we go. We're back. Alright, we'll kill that. We're back to where... But like there's one more, but I can't remember what scene it was in. But you can't really make out what they're eating. Because they're
at the crowning of the flower maiden.
It's one of those.
That's when I think. Yeah, I think that's that one. That scene in particular speaks more to your point because at that point, like everything was wavy, like the backgrounds, the flowers on her head, the food on the table.
Actually, yes, I found it. I found it finally. So let's actually see. You'll see it right now. I'm talking about. It looks blurry on purpose, almost. You see? You see, like that centerpiece, you can't really make it out. And the one by her, too, like it's really tough to make out. There's another clip of it that I saw real fast. But now it's not going to give it to me. You're a douchebag. But that was my face watching. I related to her in that moment. That was my face watching her boyfriend do the dude, too.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's a perfect thumbnail for how I felt throughout this whole movie. Like, what the hell is this?
I was there with you. I'm like, why am I here? Why I watch this?
She didn't do anything wrong. She really comes in as an outsider, respected the culture, didn't leave when she really had every right to, learned how to cook in their ways, participate in their dance competition festival, wins it, and this is her reward. I'm like, what is this? Why is this the reward for acknowledging and respecting other people's cultures? What is this?
It's like,
That's what you
I
get.
respect your culture. I participate in your culture, and what do I get? A flower costume.
A flower costume, and your friends get murdered and potentially eaten around you. Yep. And I still think they were eaten alive. That's just me personally. I might be wrong.
It's hard to argue against that because the drugs make that very likely. Because I'm like, you have to be high in order to participate in all the food that they had you eating at a certain point. Because what was it? The underage girl fed Christian her pubic hair into the makeshift shepherd's pie. It's part of a love potion. I'm just like, all right.
Puts objects under his bed. Yeah.
See, no, that was fine up until the next day. Where it's like, oh.
Yeah, that one's kind of cute. The pubic hair one, that reaches like a level of...
That's a hell no with a side. I'll get the fuck out of here.
How the hell is that cute?
No, I mean,
You're trying to brainwash him
onto the bed.
Okay.
No, how is that cute? How is that cute? She was trying to brainwash him.
Because it's a little bit it's a little bit like an oblique way of saying I like you. It's sort of like leaving a little note in your locker.
So, sir, we talked about an episode where some crazy sasaeng did that to an idol. All right, she was writing him letters in her menstrual blood, and that shit was not cute. It's the same goddamn logic. I'm usually the nutty one around here, and I'm telling you that's not logical.
Okay, I'm saying that this is where it starts.
No.
Yeah, that is where it starts. That's where the problem begins.
It starts out with things that feel relatively normal, or at least like not pathological.
But it wasn't. Because before that scene, you had a scene where they were doing some type of I don't know, they were just running around the field, and she kicks him subtly, right when Christian was next to Danny, mind you, but she subtly kicks him, and then he, in a couple seconds, he's like, "Oh, let me just get up and kind of see what that's about," because he saw the look that she gave him. So that was subtle. Her going to his bed in the middle of the night and putting that love rune underneath his bed in the hopes that he falls in love with her. Yeah, no, that's not what you describe as subtle, cutesy type of innocent type of thing. That is okay, this chick is crazy.
Yeah, and we've kind of been dealing with a bit of some crazy things like that around here too the past few weeks.
It's one step forward beyond something that's merely cute.
Dude, I think we ran a few laps forward after that. Once you start sticking pubes into the food, you got problems, alright?
Hey, maybe I'm just more trusting. Maybe I'm just more...
Maybe you're just a fish that eats a bunch of crap from the bottom of the lake. No respect for yourself.
It's her way of saying something.
Oh man, you're not allowed to leave the country or go to any foreign sounding group member organizations at all. I'm putting a bolo out on you.
You're hearing it now, folks. The fish likes the parties from Eyes Wide Shut, folks. It's confirmed right here. God damn it! Why are you hurting me today, Alex Jones? I didn't do nothing to you. I won't stop. I still won't stop. Okay, I'll stop. Stop making me cough. It's okay. I'm sorry.
I wish this had sake in it. I wish this container had sake. I need it right now.
I need water right now. I will be back. You guys keep on. Move to your next subject because there are some other weird ones here to go for. I'll be right back. Alex Jones, you suck.
So, earlier on, you said that this was this movie made you realize that folk horror is the essence of horror. What? Could you elaborate on that? What do you mean by that?
So I can pick up 10 random, I guess, like mainstream horror films or traditional horror films in terms of like from a US standpoint, and I will not feel maybe half of how I feel on watching a full horror movie in the first like 30 minutes. Because I
Interesting.
feel like folk horror is like reaches into the essence of what horror is supposed to be, without any sort of filter, without any sort of like middleman gatekeeping obstacle. It just gets into the hard root of it, and then rips it out and puts it on display, and you have no choice but to do Sansa Stark stare at it from Game of Thrones. You just stare at it, and then the more you stare at it, the less you understand, and somehow you learn a little bit by bit. But it's just there, and you can't escape it. You can only just acknowledge it, and then you just witness it in all of its glory. And then by the end of it, you are changed forever. I can't get that from a Freddy film. No,
It
I
seems
cannot
like
get
the
that from a
robot
Freddy film.
was
I think
reawakened.
that maybe it's been. I think maybe the clue is in the name of the genre, folk horror. It's about the horror in like what people are 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 capable of. Because in most folk horror movies, I find there is no supernatural element at play, but the horror is in the fact that the is in the beliefs, is in the supernatural beliefs of the people that are the objects of horror. The horror is in what they do as a result of their belief in the supernatural, not the supernatural itself. So the genre really kind of zeroes in on the horror of like what it is that people do. And I think that, that kind of is the scariest thing about our world, is just like what people are capable of, especially people that are kind of under a spell, under the spell of some belief or or some tradition that they're a part of, that just makes their morality so radically different from ours.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. Some people, when it comes to this kind of behavior, even though they know not to do it, they still have such a built-in way of being that they don't think straight.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
And I mean, you go ahead. Sorry.
well, like when it comes to dealing with these kind of cultist type folks, like a lot of the times deactivating them or getting through to them requires a certain type of finesse, but it's tough because they've been raised in that for so long. They don't think straight. We've run into people ourselves, like because it's just the way they've been raised. They should know better, but they don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah,
Or it's just like it's just kind of like hard to believe that people can be like just so incredibly different and other from you. And this gets back to the essence of horror, because I think that horror fundamentally plays on our prejudices.
it does.
Finds something that we're afraid of, because a lot of fear is just prejudice, and prejudice is often based on just information that we don't have. Both prejudice and fear often just come from information that we don't have. The fact that we don't know about something, fear of the unknown, prejudice of the unknown. So, for example, a non-folk horror example, the movie Orphan, which we should talk about.
Yes.
The movie with the little Russian girl that gets adopted. I won't talk about the ending of that.
No, that one you ruined that spoiler. That's gonna ruin the whole thing.
We'll save that for when we actually talk about it, because it's a hell of an end of an ending. It's really good. But so that movie is about a scary adopted girl. And at the beginning of the movie, they actually have a disclaimer saying, like, this movie is about an adopted an adopted child. But adoption isn't actually a scary thing, and here are some resources that you can use if you're interested in adoption. So like that movie kind of covers its bases as far as endorsing the stereotype goes, but it still plays on the kind of stigma that we still have about adoption. People still prefer generally people still prefer to try to have their own kids rather than rather than adopt. There's still just like a little bit of stigma and fear around around adoption, partly because it's bringing an outsider into the family. Like it's not hard to see why there would be still a little bit of fear around that. So that movie expressly doesn't endorse a prejudice, but it still plays on the fact that the prejudice exists. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So, but in folk horror very much relies on prejudice in a more explicit way, because it plays on our fear of the other, of other cultures, about what other people are up to. It plays on stereotypes of rural people. Plays on stereotypes of and I mean maybe this is partly where the stereotype comes from, of people that join small communities. Well, sounds like that you're just joining a cult. And in every folk horror movie, it does actually turn out that this small community in the woods actually is killing people, actually is doing human sacrifice. So it's a genre that takes a staple of the horror genre, which is prejudice and fear of the unknown, and really kind of leans into it in a more explicit way than other horror genres do. So I do think that there's that and some other ways are ways in which folk horror kind of like is the core of the horror genre.
Yeah. It goes back into the unknown and back into that sense of we don't understand it, and on top of that we're isolated, and it's something that I'm not even going to say could. The Midsommar, believe it or not, I believe is actually the more or less most realistic one, because a lot of it is induced. A lot of the supernatural stuff you see is induced with drugs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the cult.
Nothing. That is something that I think is a staple of the genre. Typically, is that nothing supernatural actually happens. But believe. But the horror comes from what supernatural belief makes people do.
Yeah, like for example, in the one we covered last time, Starbaker, that rabbit was supernatural.
Yes.
The rabbit was supernatural, but it's the rabbit in itself is just a set piece, because what they're doing is creepier. They're sacrificing to the rabbit. Then they're out in the middle of nowhere, and the people around them are like, "It's a good thing that the rabbit picked you." It's like, no, it's not. Fuck you. It's crazy.
Right. Yeah. And Lamb is another good example, which is a great movie to compare Starbaker to.
Yeah, but then you get like Midsommar, where it's like, I don't know if we necessarily saw anything really supernatural happening throughout the movie, because they're on drugs.
Oh, there was that one dream. There was that one dream sequence that Danny had, but that was just a dream sequence.
Yeah,
you had like the darkness flowing out of her, and then there was every time she was having a trip or a dream, she would be visiting her dead parents and sister.
Yeah, but for example, those are dreams, and again, they're like on a lot of LSD and stuff going on. Like, it's very difficult. Yeah. So it's hard to tell if they saw or anything that they experienced was actually a real supernatural thing, or if it's drugs, or it's that the people are freaking out.
All drugs. Yeah, just all drugs. Because the only thing that was supernatural is how that guy did not die being a blood eagle. Like, good lord, like.
So that's the point I was trying. Sorry to cut you off. Just the point I'm trying to make is this one to me is a lot creepier, because this one could be out there. you could actually have this kind of problem going on out there. We just don't know it yet, you know?
Right. Yeah. And I think the fact that it all takes place in daylight helps with that.
Yep. Because
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We shot, and it also forces you to look at it, you know, because we shy away from the darkness, typically. But the fact that it's all out there just kind of like makes it feel more real. Yeah, but it's a yeah, you know, you do get the sense that this one could be out there, but I think it's worth emphasizing that human sacrifice is actually really, really rare in human cultures historically and contemporarily. It's actually really not very common. And but I mean that's another thing about the stereotypes is that, you know, these folk horror movies are about these cults that end up doing human sacrifice when in reality that's actually really, really rare, even in cultures that resemble the people that are portrayed in folk horror films.
yeah, no. You know what's funny is that it's not the first time this week I heard that like human sacrifices are something that's highlighted more than really did happen. And then I look at my own people's heritage, the Mayan culture. Yeah.
That one did come to mind. No, that's a good example of it actually happening. Yes,
it did happen.
That's real.
Yeah. Like some people were like, "Oh, you know, that's just a myth." And in reality, it's a myth created by Christian settlers that there was sacrifice. They were harmless people. And I'm like, "Yo, if you go to Copan, the stairs are still red from all the blood that would shed on that. It's like all brown, rotted blood. It makes its way down the pyramid." So when I was a kid, that happened. That did not happen. But it's fascinating when you start to look at that stuff because we don't, when you watch a movie like Midsommar, it's hard to really gauge that this is something that isn't happening, but it really is. Like something that is, I feel like it could be out there, you know. I've said it before, like there's some things that I think, you know, we're watching a movie of, but it might be out there. Like,
I mean, people do disappear, and you know, you gotta leave it up to your imagination.
So these guys actually reminded me of two different cults I've heard of in the past. So I went looking for the Harga. I'm like, this feels a little intricate. I feel like it's real. Like this is based on something. A lot of the Harga stuff is based off of like old school Swedish folklore that I could spend hours going through. Somebody else did. But what I found fascinating is they also reminded me of an American Christian group. Believe it or not, they're not harmful. They're gone because after a while, like, you know, they kind of died out. There's maybe like 2 left at most. Have you guys ever heard of Shakers?
Yes. And the reason there are no more Shakers is because they were all celibate.
They were celibate, and they used to rely like on orphans and stuff like that. And then like some of the youth, they would leave and stuff. They would leave, then go into the towns to make money because they were like some of the best like builders and stuff and the best artists. But these guys kind of gave me a similar vibe. Like
Shakers, they were movers.
Yeah. I can't access the soundboard. I just. Oh, wait a minute. And I'm not gonna hit the cue right anyway. But
yes, actually, so not only that, but there was at least one very good Shaker songwriter. Because do you know the hymn "Simple Gifts"?
Simple Gifts.
Tis a gift to be simple. Tis a gift to be free. Da 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 da. That's a Shaker hymn.
Really?
Actually, it remains a popular Christian hymn.
I didn't know that. But like that's the vibe I got from these people. Like they kind of have the similar setup, bunk beds for certain people. Like and there's certain festivals, a lot of sort of dancing and happiness to everything that they do. Like on the surface, these folks look happy, but they're really not. But like actually they're happy, but they're not diabolical. But like it's kind of the same vibe I got from seeing them.
And some of the characters in Midsommar. So after the ritual suicide, uh, like Danny's horrified, but I think it's Christian is telling her, well, like we let our old people just like deteriorate in nursing homes, and is that and better? And it's sort of like, and I mean, I think that maybe after I saw this, we were, I think I was just kind of thinking out loud about it, and I was saying, like, well, I mean, people can have a choice of when they want to go, and maybe you want to go when you're fit and healthy, and this culture embraces that. But then I thought, wait a minute, no, this culture seems to be very compulsory and like authoritarian at its core. So if this culture did exist in real life, I think those people probably wouldn't have a choice as to whether they would commit suicide at 72 or not. I think that, whether they wanted to or not, it would have happened. So, yeah. And the movie it's not really forgiving of this culture that it's portraying at all. It does portray it as, pretty brutal, and like the kind of efforts at cultural relativism on the part of the anthropology students kind of fail.
Yeah, no, they.
Like at the end, you've got when everybody's being burned in the hut. This kind of like pine syrup that the elders give the people that are being sacrificed is supposed to like kill the pain so that they don't suffer as they die. And he very solemnly says, "Feel no pain." But as soon as the fire touches, and
Yeah. Yeah, that's bullshit.
Nope, that did not work at all.
Ooh, I have wasted my life. That's like the moment. That's the first sound that comes to mind. Ooh, I have wasted my life. And the fire burns.
Like that whole thing, it happens once every 90 years.
Right. Yep. Once every 90 years.
So it's like that would explain why their population isn't as decimated as one should be if this was like somewhat more regular.
Right.
This basically happens once every 100 years because it's like this is a rare type of event in their culture. That being said, there are just so many glaring. It's weird because it's like on the surface, it's like this is objectively wrong. We should be admonishing this, not like trying to like, hey, let's give it a chance. But it's like there's certain points where it's like the horror didn't set in up until when one of the guys mindlessly pees on the sacred tree when they were not given any warning as to why that tree is there.
Right.
Like disregarding one of the British couples going missing. Like, yeah, that's whatever. Like, as soon as they said that, like, yeah, no, he's dead, whatever. But like the horror didn't really set in until what's his face pees on the ancestral tree. That's when the horror for me. I can't see. I'm not sure about you guys, but for me, that's when the horror part of this film finally starts to like, okay, this is where it actually starts being a horror film. Like I was able to forgive everything up until that point.
I mean,
even the old people dying.
Like if I were him, I would have done the same thing. There's no porta potty around, so.
Pretty much.
I mean, he could have made the effort. He could have made an effort to at least ask her. He goes, "Oh, I see a dead tree here."
He could have gone into the forest, like there was.
Yeah, that's what you usually do.
There. At least for some privacy.
That's what you usually do. You just go into the forest and you pee. You don't pee in the middle of the field where everyone can see you.
Well, normally not.
This is stupid. No, and he wasn't even on drugs on that. I mean, he had his vape pen, but like, I don't think that was like had enough potent drugs in it to kind of make him like be dissonant for that. But man, oh man,
he was on drugs.
Yeah.
He was on what I call white people syndrome drugs. You lose all logicals of sense and behavior, and you act like a white person in a horror movie. I'm just gonna pee on this tree. I'm just gonna go out and have sex 20, 30 yards away on the middle of nowhere, regardless of bark on my ass. It's all good. I'm just gonna go ahead and do these things. Let's go get drunk and go skinny dipping in the middle of the pool in the middle of the night, which must be fucking freezing to get in there. But we're gonna do it because hey, I'm a white person in a horror movie. Sorry. We all know. We all thinking it. I'm just saying it. We've seen it in these movies a whole bunch of times.
I wonder when that trope, when
Well,
those tropes will finally die away.
Well, no, Josh, the one anthropology student, he's
Yeah.
not white. He does some pretty reckless things.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Which one of them ruins the book?
Yes,
That was
he's
Josh.
the one that's taking the pictures of the book, which is very, very dumb. And then he's the one whose leg you see sticking out of the garden bed.
His
Which
leg.
is that's when the movie got ridiculous.
That's when we crossed the valley. We're like, we're not there anymore. This isn't one of those kind of films. No.
Yeah, it's like we go from that first scene, which is just like unbearably depressing, to it finally getting into like, okay, this is a proper like kind of goofy horror movie.
Yeah, much like the audience, the film has now lost its mind as well, and it has entered insanity, and we must just laugh at the insanity.
That is so. I was listening to an interview with Ari Aster earlier today on Eli Roth's History of Horror podcast. I don't think it runs anymore, but there's 3 seasons, and it's just interviews with like horror luminaries and directors and actors. But that was exactly what Aster was saying about Hereditary, is that he wanted to give you the sense of like the movie itself losing its mind, not just the characters, but the movie itself losing its mind, like as it progresses.
And that's ultimately what it did.
Something similar in Midsommar. Yeah.
Yeah, this suddenly goes a bit off the rails, like right there in the final act. But you're like, of course, the lady, like she's losing her mind. And at this point, she's gone through enough things. And it's a lot easier for her to just embrace Pell and the insanity that's going to ensue and just have fun. Just like us, like at this point, like we're cool with all those people dying. We're watching it from her point of view. Yeah, we're cool with it now. Because ultimately, she was upset at first, but now she's happy because the final vestiges of that life have kind of cut themselves off. And she's free to be the May Queen and live there.
Yeah.
She effectively kills her boyfriend. We're just going to gloss over that. She effectively sentences her boyfriend to death.
Yeah.
He did that to himself.
I mean...
You were saying?
So, I've mentioned this way of analyzing horror films before, but at the end of every horror film, you can usually answer the question of does evil win or does good win? And in this one, it's ambiguous, which I think is interesting. Because like I was saying before, you're horrified at the fact that Danny is, kind of like glad, or at least is sort of like taking joy in this situation of her boyfriend having died and everybody else having died. But on the other hand, it's like, well, finally she's happy. So on the one hand, like evil things have happened, and there's no undoing them. But there's no real justice doled out towards the people that did those evil things. But on the other hand, like Danny has this burden lifted from her, and you feel a little bit good about that. So at the end of this movie, it's ambiguous as to whether good wins or evil wins, or maybe both happens. I think it's interesting how that was done.
Yeah, I think so too. I honestly think in this one, in a weird way, there is no good, there is no evil.
Yeah.
Because even the settings, like I like to say this about this one in particular, most of the settings we'll see in a horror movie, they're kind of dark, dreary. Even Starvaker, right, was a very sort of dark, dreary. It almost looks like Silent Hill is coming upon those people. In this one, the environment kind of makes you wonder if, although they're savage, at least they're honest with what they are. Versus these people that are going in there, they're not really who they say they are. That guy don't really love her no more. Those people don't really care about her anymore. Whereas the Harga from the beginning, they're very like warm, inviting, and although it's deceptive to those people that are deceptive, she's not hiding anything. She's just there because she doesn't want to be alone. You know what I mean? So it makes you wonder, like,
what has always disturbed me about this movie, because I saw this movie, I think, like pretty soon after it came out, and it has always really kind of left a mark on me such that I've never been quite comfortable sitting down and watching it. The last time I watched it was actually a few weeks ago. I didn't watch it again specifically for this podcast because I watched it like a month ago with some friends. But that time sitting down to watch it, I actually felt okay. But for a while, I was like, I kind of avoided this movie because it just like brought me to a place that I didn't like, and I've been trying to figure out why. And maybe that's it, because there's no clear like calling out of evil. There's no it doesn't kind of like maybe it doesn't exactly treat evil for what it is.
no,
Maybe
it's
that's what bothered me about it.
it's kind of trippy on a bunch of senses. What you said, there's no presentation. Evil is in the eye of the beholder. Just like a lot of things are. Life is really in the eye of the beholder. I'll tell you a great act of evil that the person who did it probably thought they were doing God's work when they did it.
Mm-hmm.
The Holocaust.
Yes, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
there were a lot of people that tied that into their religious well sense of being, and it was Nazism was kind of cultish, and in their belief they were doing the right thing. Whereas, fast forward 50, 60 years later, we know they were doing the wrong thing on that one. But they were brainwashed into thinking they were doing the right thing. Yep. It's really weird, but it's hard to explain what is wrong and what isn't, right? To our book, this is wrong. And what they're doing is like, hey guys, let the old people die naturally. Here in the West, we arrested Jack Kevorkian for doing that shit. Like, we don't approve of that. It's not an ethical discussion. Like, just don't do it. Then, to them, though, it's like, no, but we let them go. Yeah, but you don't even do it painfully, brother. Like, those people have to jump. And they feel those last few seconds. And then when they hit the ground, they didn't think that one guy was fully dead and think they wanted to go finish him off. No, like, he was still in pain.
He wasn't fully dead. Yeah, he survived, unfortunately for him.
Yeah,
like he went there planning to die, and then he unfortunately didn't get it right, and so they had to finish the job.
Yeah, like, come on, man. You care about humanity, but no, that's why I go back to the cannibals. You kill them in a way that won't spoil the meat. Because you easily could, have them lie down and, or, right? You could. But you're bludgeoning him like you do a pig, but you don't want to let him know he's being bludgeoned. You're just throwing him over the cliff and then hoping that things occur the right way. So I'm interpreting it. But yeah, that's the one thing with this one though. Like, it's just how everything is. It's presented to you in the way the world really is. There is no real sense of evil. You know what I mean? I could get political here, but
and yet I think maybe the reason why I got more comfortable with this movie is because I did start to see the ways in which it calls out the culture that it's portraying. Because like I said before, when they give them the pine syrup to ease the pain of the flames, it doesn't work. It just turns out that it just doesn't work. And then in the ritual suicide scene, it's supposed to be this kind of peaceful, quick passing into whatever comes after life in that culture, if anything. But it doesn't work. Like the guy just breaks the guy's leg just snaps in two, and then they have to bludgeon him to death with a hammer. It's just like it shows the ways in which this culture is actually kind of like dysfunctional, and it actually isn't doing the thing that it actually isn't doing the things that it thinks it's doing. It's very critical of the culture that it's of the culture that it's portraying. So maybe that kind of dawned on me, and that's why I feel a bit better about this movie, because it's like, okay, it is pretty clearly saying, like, these guys are bad.
Yeah, they're bad.
Yeah.
But who's worse, them or the people that were brought her there?
I usually defer to the people that aren't like brutalizing other human beings.
Well, weren't they brutalizing her emotionally by stringing her along?
It's cruel.
But
It's not the same thing as. Like,
But you're saying they? It's just more of that was
that
a single person's decision, because
Dude.
they all told him to dump her, and they were the ones that were suffering because of his selfishness not to cut it off when it was high time to do so.
Gotcha.
And Pell is just Pell. He was just waiting. He was waiting for her to be vulnerable. So in his sick mind, he was helping her. And sadly, by the end of this, he did.
So
That's
a good point, because I think that though he's kind of convinced himself that he's doing the kind thing, he really knows that he's doing the wrong thing. I think there is a large part of him that is, though he's wrestling with it, he really does kind of know that he's stringing her along, and that he's just making things worse for her in the long run. And actually, he's being kind of selfish, because he doesn't want to go through the pain of having to break up with her. He's trying to like emotionally protect himself from having to go through that. So though he's kind of justified it to himself, Christian, I think, knows he's doing the wrong thing. But the people in this Swedish culture, I think that they've just been brainwashed to the point where they don't think that any of this is wrong. They I think, believe that all of this is fine and justified, just because they've grown up with that morality. So in that sense, you could say, Jack, that what Christian is doing is worse, because he's doing something that he knows is wrong, whereas the Swedish people are doing something wrong, but they think it's right.
All right. So I got one more question for you guys, and then we'll begin the wrap-up point here. Which one of these deaths do you think could have been avoided?
Josh. Hands down, Josh.
Yeah. That's another good example where Josh was doing something that was explicitly forbidden. Nobody else really did anything that was explicitly forbidden. So Josh, I think, is the one that maybe like.
Peeing on the sacred tree is explicitly forbidden.
He's like, no. But like, Mark didn't know that at the time. But Josh was told to his face by the elder, "You can't take any pictures." Whereas Mark just thought that it was a tree. He didn't know that it had any significance as far as like ancestor worship goes.
Oh boy.
So yes, definitely Josh.
All right. So this is the one time the black guy for death was his own fault, nobody else's.
Hold on. No.
Yeah. That's why that was another reason why this film mainly threw me for a loop, because he started off doing all the like typical stereotype things, like, oh, he's avoiding obvious trouble, he's just saying what needs to be said. and then he does this shit. I'm just like, what happened
Then
to
he
your brain cells,
then he
man?
converts into a white person in a horror movie. They told me not to take pictures of the book, but I'm gonna go take pictures of the book anyway because I need the plot to move forward. Self-preservation is not a thing to me.
Yes. Also, if you talk about white people in horror films, I personally have never seen so many white people in a horror film.
That's why it was the wildest movie we watched.
That didn't click to me until just now. It didn't click to me just now. Oh, jeez.
That's why it's the wildest horror movie we watched on here. It's only one black person out the entire film.
And he was the second dumbest one in the cast.
Should have just stayed asleep. That's why I'm surprised. Like, I feel like it.
Yeah,
I feel
is clearly the dumbest one.
Yeah, wouldn't you just stay asleep? Like, you know what? That's none of my business. I'm here to take pictures of this. Let me just take pictures of this and call it a day. I don't even do this. PhD student, my ass.
Yeah, honestly, that just proves that like having a piece of paper from a university or a college, or whatever, means nothing when they do stuff like this. Like, you pestered one of these people to get permission to document them when they rather not. And after making so many like accommodations for you, yeah, still go ahead and violate one of their sacred rules while the Oracle is trying to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
This is considered at multiple levels.
Yeah, betrayal is a strong theme in this movie because that was like a strong betrayal of trust, especially like if you just think about the ethics of anthropology research, where it's just like, you know, if you're trying to earn the trust of the people whose culture you want to study, you know, you need to like have some basic level of respect. And if they say you can't take pictures of this, then in order to stay in their good graces and maintain the privilege of staying there and making your observations, you can't break that trust. You know, it's just sort of like it really is kind of an infuriating scene in the movie where it's just like, you know, that guy specifically told you that you can't do this. Just yeah.
And this happened right after Mark got in trouble for peeing on the sacred tree. So I'm just like, why are you doing back-to-back sacrilegious things? Like, come on, like,
yeah, and it's
come on.
Because I don't need to follow logic.
Then the Oracle shows up wearing Mark's face.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I felt a slightly racist undertone to that, personally. He doesn't make anybody else's face into a mask, does he? He doesn't give them the leather face treatment. He just gives it to this guy. Like, ooh, I want the skin.
Because, I mean, I think it was like, because it felt like a direct like warning / punishment. Because he didn't have time to kind of understand the warning, because he was giving a warning. So it was like, okay, this guy peed on the tree. That's why when you look at it was a quick blinking and miss it. Like, his dick was cut off. They noticed they removed his dick in the skin costume, which I'm like, that's when you know it was Mark. I was like, okay, he's dead, and you're about to join him in 0.2 seconds, and he's been scalped. They bludgeoned him and scalped him in one fatal blow. I'm like, wow, that takes a lot of skill and competence, and it's very impressive.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah. One thing I want to go back to, as we wrap up, is before, when I was saying about how the first scene with Danny's family dying and how they died, how that kind of infuriates me because it sort of crossed the line. The way that Jack put it was that it goes from horror to horrific, because it just sort of like, in that scene, it doesn't feel quite like a horror movie. It doesn't feel quite like a drama. It's playing it feels like it's playing somewhere in between, such that what I'm seeing it's not scary. It's just upsetting.
Yep.
And and just it's just like it's upsetting, and it's almost kind of like in infuriating. Um, anyway, but the ironic thing is that in that interview with Eli Roth that I was listening to, where he's interviewing Ari Aster, Ari Aster specifically says, and in this moment in the interview, he was talking more about Hereditary, but I think it applies to Midsommar as well. He was saying that when you are making a horror movie, you have the privilege of dealing with certain content that you can't really deal with in a drama. Because if Hereditary, he said that if Hereditary were a drama, it would just be too upsetting. It would just be too much. But there are certain protections that you're afforded when you're making a straight horror movie, where you can portray things like that, and the fact that it's a horror movie kind of softens the blow of those events. So I think it's very interesting that he's actually thinking about that while he's making these movies. And I thought that at least the scene at the beginning of Midsommar, that he wasn't doing it successfully, because it still feels like really, really like deeply upsetting. It doesn't really feel like it's a horror movie that it's just kind of like using human suffering and tragedy as a way of making a scary scene. It really just kind of feels like you're being buried in the absolute despair of what happened. It doesn't feel like a horror movie. So I think that it's just kind of interesting that he's actually thinking about this while I'm saying, like, that's not working for me, man. Sorry. Too much.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. And I mean, listening to the interview did make me like rethink about that, but maybe next time I'll watch the movie. I'll feel differently about it.
Yeah, which I could see happening.
Yeah.
But this is one of those ones. It's the first time I saw this movie, I was bored. Everybody was telling me to watch it, and I was bored. And when I watched it again for this, I'm like, oh, it's actually better than I remember it. That's what happens when you sleep before watching a movie. You take a nice nap, and you're energized and fresh, ready to go. But no.
So I know I'm introducing every one of my statements as we're wrapping up, suggesting that we're never actually going to wrap up. But one of the times that I watched this movie, I rented it from the Boulder Public Library. Boulder, as in Colorado. For those of you who don't know, I live in Colorado. But on the inside of the DVD, their copy at the Boulder Public Library, there is a note from a library member
In order to
written on a napkin that has been inserted into the sleeve of the DVD, and I would like to read it for you all. Perhaps we can even post a picture of it, because it's an interesting thing. Okay, so this is someone who is not happy with the fact that the Boulder Public Library is carrying this film. So, dated December 6th, 2023. The note reads, "Please ban this from the library, ... Burn it, ... Our young and old shouldn't watch this movie. It is a cult.
Dip.
Movie no business being in our library." I feel like I'm reading a Jack the
Ripper.
The last words are, "Ban it, please!" ! So, the movie has excited some controversy, at least in the mind of one Boulder Public Library member.
Some Karen that doesn't seem to have anything better to do with their time.
Yeah. Well, and my wife actually wrote a note in response to this, and also inserted it into the DVD, basically saying, like the solution within appropriate material isn't to ban it. Like we want a record, we want we want to have like we don't want to be censorious about this just because it's an upsetting piece of material doesn't mean that people shouldn't have access to it. That kind of thing.
Bingo.
Yeah.
All right. So, do you guys have any other statements on Midsommar? Closing
I
statement.
have exhausted all of my thoughts.
Robot.
I don't want to go to Sweden anymore. I'm good. I think I'm good.
Man, Sweden is good as long as you don't eat the dried pickled fish. Should be fine.
I was just about to say you can't be tempted by fermented fish.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm actually definitely allergic to that. So, which is ironic coming from you, right?
About it.
Yeah,
Sorry, Alex Jones.
I will not stand for any statements against fish or fish kind.
We can't tempt you with a large Swedish woman. I mean, that does the trick for most people.
Like a Swedish fish.
Nah, that's true. See?
Yeah.
Giggity. Perilous, my fucking quagmire. That's my closest statement on this one. That guy literally goes, "Dear Diary, depressed Florence Pugh. Jackpot. Oh! Alright, giggity. That's all I heard.
He kissed her too without any consent.
What was that?
He just randomly just kissed her when she was like going through that after she won the ceremony and just trying to get through the whole crowd of people. I'm just like, you don't think I didn't notice? You got your kissing when she was still dating the guy. Don't think I didn't notice. It's okay because he's dead now.
They were about to finish him off in a couple of minutes anyway.
Yeah, he could have at least waited though.
Figuratively and literally. What? That lady was pushing his ass in there just so she could make sure he finished off.
So I mean, I don't think the burning moral question is it okay to kiss a guy's girlfriend when you're about to murder him but haven't murdered him yet? I think the burning question is on the murder.
Yeah,
that's the important part here.
Yeah, the murder was the main part here. The ethics of him kissing her before she was murdered was a completely different thing. Yeah.
Actually, I do have something to say. That poor bear did not deserve that.
If Midsommar were remade as just an episode of Seinfeld, that would be the thing that they were talking about.
Goodness.
I Is that meme where like they were doing what Kramer was at Jerry's door all the time, and it's like the blue lights. It's the thing, Jerry. One of us is the thing.
No, there would be a scene with Kramer making pies with all the ladies. That would be what Kramer was doing.
George is like, they say, Jerry. They said I could have me a young bride. I can never have another chance, Jerry. I'm unemployed. I live with my parents.
Kramer would be like dropping the dough. It's like falling.
There's a bee in my point. Elaine, do you see the bee? Jerry, shut up. It's free food. But do you see the bee, Elaine? I can't be the only one who sees this. Come on. She told me she put hair in my pie. What do you guys think that means? Is that coming on a little strong? She what? She put hair in my pie. Is that coming on too strong? You think she likes me? I think she's obsessed.
They would be asking Elaine.
Yeah, Elaine probably be like, "What? That tall guy's into me."
What does this mean? What does that mean? Yeah.
You know what? I gotta see if AI can make this for me. Do.
And on that note,
Elaine Summer.
Oh,
Was it the Spring Queen or the Summer Queen? What was it? The May Queen, right? Mayflower Queen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you doing? What are you making?
And
He's about to make a mistake.
Trying
He's
to
about
see
make
if-
a mistake.
Elaine can be the the Mayflower Queen. That would be a great episode of Seinfeld.
The good one.
Come on, you suck, AI. All right. You know what? When the time comes and I upload clips of this episode, I will put that through ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will do it for me.
We cut to the scene of the inside of the hut burning, and the transition music is.
A lot of it I can do here. Yeah, the stream will hear it for sure. That's a great show still, despite all the controversies behind it. There you go.
Oh yeah, I love it. Yeah, oh yeah, it's a staple.
That would be a great movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I miss Mad TV's old TV parodies.
That's it for the Ghastly Hallows.
That's it for this episode. So next week, are we officially doing Wicker Man? I know we had a unit.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, it was this one.
Yeah.
The other one we did, and I think it was
Still
Wicker
live?
Man next. Yeah, we're still live. I just want to make sure so we go ahead and tell people what we're doing. In case they want to
Oh,
avoid.
actually doing that.
Yeah, we're just doing it. Make sure we need to start committing to what we offer around here, folks. You can't be like Darkside Phil. Puts things up and then he doesn't do them. It's all messed up. Piss people off.
Things. We don't have to announce things on air. We can announce things on our active social media channels.
There you go. Good plug. Good plug.
Good plug, yes. I announce things over on TikTok sometimes. And sometimes not. I need to get better at it.
Going with the tickety sock.
Let me just pull this out. So, I guess I'll close this out. One thing of advice, folks. It sounds cool to sleep with some lady in a cult until the old lady gets up in your face, and then you just regret your life choices. That's my closing statement over on Midsommar. The rest of you folks out there in Radio Land, I hope you're having a good night. And now my two co-hosts. This is the Ghastly Hallows. I am Pumpkin Jack, and my two co-hosts are
Easter Bunny Bolt.
what?
Who's not in a cult?
Salute for not being in a cult, people.
Isn't that just what someone in a cult would say?
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
Yes, it would